On today's video, Patrick Mahomes returns to Texas. We're going to tell you what he needs to exploit in that Texans defense to make it a happy homecoming. Plus, we're going to look at a couple articles about Spags and the play calling, and we're going to give you our predictions on the Texans game. Stick around.
Patrick Mahomes grew up 2 hours outside of Dallas, and he played his college ball at Texas Tech, but he hasn't played there as a professional yet, and he's getting his first game back in the state against the Texans this weekend. A lot of friends and family and other people that couldn't make some of his games, it might be their first time. So what does he need to do to show out against the Texans, exploit that defense, and make it a memorable homecoming for Mahomes?
Right, so I've been looking through PFF today. Why not? That's what I do to pass the time. And so against the Cowboys, the Texans actually looked pretty good, but I went back and looked at some of their defensive grades, and the one thing I can find that Mahomes can exploit is a little guy we all know by the name of Steven Nelson. I'm not for sure how much he plays. I didn't get to see the snap count, but when looking at coverage grades, Steven Nelson is a 48.5 coverage grade. There's not a lot of players on that Houston Texans team that does cover very well. The highest graded player is MJ Stewart at a 75% coverage grade. So everybody is between 75 and 48. That is the coverage gap. By the way, Brian Cook is somewhere around 75 in coverage. So just think about that. Like, that's their best defenders, Brian Cook, and we kind of critique him, and he don't even get a lot of playing time on our defense that our own fans hate.
Right. So all I want for this game is for Patrick Mahomes to absolutely annihilate Steven Nelson. Everyone remembers him not being good here in Kansas City, then moving on to Pittsburgh and doing nothing but talking trash on Kansas City, the team, the organization, the city, all together. I think he talked about how he was too good to play there. They were a poverty franchise and the city was racist or something. It's always something with Steven Nelson. So I hope he just goes out there and slaughters him completely. Just exploit that way undersized corner that shouldn't be in the NFL anyway. And it'll be fun in a couple different ways.
So, yeah, he can definitely exploit this defense by just attacking them in the passing game. I don't think Andy Reid's going to have a problem calling pass plays. They can't cover very well. They're not a very good coverage team. Their defense is ranked, I want to say, 32? 31 or 32, I'm not for sure.
32, they're the worst.
Okay, 32, they're the worst. So I started to look at tackling. Tackling's another issue. Once we start completing passes, be it in the flats, over the middle, whatever it is, I looked at tackling. They've got 5 players out of their starters that are below a 29 tackling grade. These guys don't tackle very well. There's only 4 on the team that is over a 70 in a tackle grade. So pass the ball. You can beat them, on the boundaries. They don't tackle very well. And after Mahomes exploits them the entire first half, hopefully we have figured it out, and in the second half we can let Pacheco mess up those tackling grades even more, and we can come out there with a big win.
Right, and it should be a very natural game for Patrick Mahomes. One of his biggest knocks is that he presses too much, but this is one of those games where it shouldn't matter. If he wants to take the long ball, he wants to take the big play, they should be able to connect quite a bit. So it should be pretty, natural and flowing for the Chiefs offense. And they should get out to an early lead, so I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, I think the best player on that defense right now in the secondary is probably rookie Jalen Petrie. He's out of Baylor. I'm sure most of you guys know him. He's from the Big 12. He's pretty good, but again, this guy is probably going to get matched up on Kelsey a few times, being a safety. Kelsey should be able to eat this game. I think Kelsey gets back on track. I think Mahomes gets back on track. He definitely exploits that bad pass coverage. He exploits that bad tackling. And I believe the Chiefs should get out to an early lead. And hopefully this time we learned our lesson a little bit. But going into the next topic, Steve, Andy Reid actually said that he did not call that game-winning Pacheco run up the gut because he, quote, thought they were just going to run into a bunch of people. And come to find out, Eric Bieniemy didn't call that play either. It was the offensive line coach, Andy Heck. What do you think about that? Is Andy Heck out here calling all the plays?
It doesn't surprise me that they had no interest in running the ball up the gut right there. That does not surprise me at all. But I am glad that Andy Heck stepped in and said, hey, run it on the inside. We're going to get this yardage, get the first down in this game. Quit. It's almost like he did what every fan wants to do. Like, stop, just run the ball.
Yes.
So, I mean, I love it. I think it's great, but it doesn't surprise me that they didn't want to call that play.
No. Andy said he just thought they needed a first down, and he wanted to try to get a first down. So naturally, Andy just wants to sling it everywhere. And Andy Heck seen something and said, "Hey, my running back, this offensive line, we will get this 10 yards and we'll get it in one play." And they did. Pacheco flat out beasted through there. He probably had like 6 missed tackles on one play, just steamrolling people. That was beautiful. But with that being said, man, I kind of wish Andy Heck would just take over all the play calling.
Obviously, he would stick with the run a lot more than the other two guys, but guess we'll never know. So we talked about the offense. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. Sports Illustrated actually reposted a story from Zach Eisen at Arrowhead Report talking about Steve Spagnuolo and how he needs to be fired and they need to move on from him. Mike, tell everybody what he had to say in that article there.
Yeah, so he basically took what we said about Spags having young players and different things like that, and we kind of used it. I don't want to say as an excuse, but we said that that was something you needed to look at. He kind of explored it, broke it down even further. He went into a lot of in-depth stats and things. He basically said that the young guys actually are performing, and when Spags has the older defenses of the past between 2019 2021, that the defense is still declined, and he sees it as Spags' defensive scheme just does not match up well with a modern offense, which is the fast, quick quarterbacks that don't want to sit in the pocket. It's the shifty wide receivers like the Tyreek Hills of the world. He's just saying that his prototype player on the outside, the big lanky guy, which we called out, his setter defensive ends, like Karlaftis, he says that they just can't get after these quarterbacks and close the gap anymore. And you do see that. It's been a struggle for Karlaftis to be able to get to the quarterback. He's put up a lot of pressures, but he doesn't get there very often. You even see Chris Jones not getting there and closing the gap some. Frank Clark hasn't been able to do it. That's what we struggle with. And he's saying that Steve Spags' prototype player and the way he runs this offense against these new style offenses, that they just don't mesh very well, and that he believes Veach is going to have to move in a different direction.
So my question is, as opposed to Spagnuolo's scheme, especially you were touching on the pass rushing, not being able to get to these new quarterbacks that are just running the ball a lot more. They're a lot quicker, a lot more athletic than say the 90s quarterbacks and things like that. But what are these other teams doing that is different? Because if you look at Buffalo, they went and got Gregory Rousseau, and he's just tearing it up in pass rush. And he's not much different than someone that Spags would have drafted or wanted to draft, because I actually thought that we would take Greg Rousseau. So, I mean, what's the big difference here in schemes by the defensive coordinators that you see on, from Spagnuolo to a good NFL defense, say like Buffalo?
I kind of believe that the only difference is that Buffalo tends to play a little more man to man. I don't think they play as much zone as we do. I have to go back and look at that, but I'm pretty sure they drafted Kyer Elam this year. He was a big man to man type guy. I don't think he was a huge zone guy. I could be completely wrong. I have to go back and look at film. But yeah, I just don't know. I feel like Spags just likes those really heavy run setter edges and people to do different things. And you can see he's starting to branch out into the zone coverages a little bit more. That's not typical Spags. And to be honest, I almost prefer the typical Spags of straight man-to-man coverage and letting our guys eat. It's just one of these things where it's like the measurables and things like that is just not transferring over. We were talking off camera. If we was to play the Dolphins in the playoffs, could you guys imagine, like seriously, could you imagine Josh Williams trying to cover Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? Like, especially Tyreek Hill. The quickness of Tyreek Hill against a bigger guy like Jalen Watson or Josh Williams. I think they get open at will on this team, and Spags is not willing to show that he will send help their way. He puts them on an island, and Tyreek Hill probably have 200 or 300 yards, which he's already ran his big mouth and said he'd do that anyway, but he probably sees what we see.
Yeah, it's a possibility. That would be an interesting matchup for sure. The small, quick receivers, even like if Cooper Kupp would have been available in the Rams game, I think he would have went crazy on this defense as well. Just any small receiver that can, use his quickness to get open. We have trouble with that anyway. The middle of the field's always open for them. It's already soft spots everywhere. That's mostly from the zone defense. But even in man-to-man, if we went man-to-man, like you said, what's Josh Williams going to do with Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? There's just not much that can be done. But that kind of leads me back to the fact that, maybe it's not all Spags. It's player personnel.
Yeah, that's a good possibility. If you look at our linebackers, Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, they're good linebackers, but they're a liability in the pass game. They really do not cover the pass
Willie
very
Gay
well.
shouldn't be. He should not
No,
be. He's so athletic. He should be great in coverage.
Right, but he's just average. Nick Bolton's not very good. Um, Sneed, he's probably our best corner all around if you want to look at experience and everything. But Sneed matched up, one on one with a Tyreek Hill. Tyreek's winning that 90% of the time easily. Why? Because Sneed is the bigger frame type. Sneed's just not going to do it. As good as Sneed is from time to time, he allows a lot of catches. He allows catches. It's simple as that. He's good. I like L'Jarius Sneed, but he lets up a lot of catches. So it would be no different against a faster receiver. I just don't know. It's just something about it. I know Justin Reid's been really good in pass coverage lately. I'll give him that. Thornhill's a better coverage guy than he is a run stopper. So to be honest, our safeties and Trent McDuffie might be the three best cover guys we have right now, with Sneed, obviously.
Yeah, so relating to this article, I don't fully agree that Spags defense is just completely outdated and it's not going to work. That just seems silly to me. I think that this team just needs more time to gel. They're young and they're new. These guys are getting really, really good experience, like Josh Williams, Jalen Watson. He's putting them out there. He's putting confidence in them to be on the island with really good receivers. I think it's just going to take some time. I think people need to chill just a little bit. Granted, this defense, yeah, you can look at it and say this does not look like a defense that could win the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't argue with you, but it's not going to get better overnight. And if you just bring in a different defensive coordinator, it's not going to get better overnight. It's not going to be any different. It might just cause more confusion than anything. Even just talking in the offseason, I think if you brought in someone different, that don't mean that you're going to be looking at the number one defense in the league next season.
Right. So this week against the Texans, we've already talked about Patrick Mahomes being able to exploit their defense because they don't tackle and they're not very good in coverage. Kind of sounds a little bit like our defense about the tackling thing. We're a little bit better in coverage, obviously. But again, what happens if we come out and do Denver part 2 and, they're missing Nico Collins. They may be missing Pierce. He's probably going to be ruled out with that high ankle. Davis Mills doesn't light the world on fire. He's like the number 26th, 27th, best quarterback in football probably. They're playing with a lot of backups. Their offensive line's a little banged up. What happens if these group of ragtag guys in Houston come out and put up, say, 24, 29 points, somewhere in that range, maybe even over 30? Like, is that a cause for concern? Does that mean Spags is justifiably should be on the hot seat and maybe we do take a better look? Because if the Texans are putting this up, I'm afraid that stopping Burrow and stopping Josh Allen again when it counts is going to be a tall task.
Well, I think you just got to take a deeper look into it because a lot of times I feel like the guys are in the right position and they're just not tackling. Sometimes I see poor effort, just poor execution. Like you said, they suck at tackling. I don't know what a defensive coordinator is going to do about that. It don't matter what you call or where these guys are positioned at. If they're not going to make a tackle for whatever reason, be it effort or just silliness, poor execution, that's not going to make a difference. So maybe you need to take a deeper look into it and see, is this, poor execution or is it just poor planning?
Well, I'll tell you, Spags is in charge of the defense, so he's in charge of who he has coming in and being his player coaches, his linebacker coaches, his defensive line coaches. All this, goes hand in hand. And if these guys aren't putting them through the tackling drills and holding them to accountability to be out, to go hit and do things properly, that falls on Spags too. So you have to get these guys to be able to tackle better. I mean, the fact that it's week in, week out, they're just whiffing and just taking bad angles and stuff, that does fall back on coaches. Coaches teach that. And also, if you're not going to go out and put that effort on the field, find somebody that will do it. That's, again, a coaching decision. So it does a little bit fall on Spags. I just think it's a little unjustly to say he's the full problem because I'm with you. A lot of time it just comes down to effort and players just being in the right spot and actually making the play once you're in the right spot.
Right. So the offense and the defense should have a good week this week. So let's take a look at this game and then we'll decide where we at here. Is it something to be panicking about? Obviously at 10-3, I don't think there's anything to be panicking about, but there's things to show concern and show where we can improve. So let's go ahead and make some predictions on this Texans game, Mike. We'll let you go first. What do you got?
Oh, here we go. So we heard Kylie yesterday. She kind of said the same thing that I'm feeling. You want to say this is going to be a blowout, but just something inside of us says the Chiefs just don't do that. We don't tend to cover the spread. We play down to our opponent so often with Andy Reid. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to predict a blowout. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to say it's going to be 37-27. If you call 10 points a blowout, then maybe I did pick the blowout. but I'm going to say 37-27. I think Mahomes has a big day. I think he has a good homecoming there in Texas. He goes for 350 and 4 touchdowns. I believe if Miko Hardman gets on the field a little bit tomorrow, you're going to see a little bit more of the offense open up a little bit better. I think Juju and Travis Kelce are both going to have big days. I actually think Pacheco will have another big day. I don't know if he'll get to 100, but he will have a good day. It's going to be a good day for the offense. The defense is what I'm concerned about, and I do think they give up between 24 27 points, and I believe the heat stays on Spags, and it's up to them to prove me wrong and to prove everybody wrong. I think our defense can be good. We've talked about it. They can be great, but they've got to show the will and the fortitude to go do it. So we'll see. But I'm not gonna give them the credit until they earn it, and I think it's gonna be 37-27.
All right. Well, this Houston Texans team is just completely depleted. They already weren't good before that. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Chiefs 42-10 here. I think that Mahomes also is going to have 350 plus with 4 touchdowns. But I think he will exit the game early, and you'll see a lot more of the run game. So you'll probably see some Pacheco, McKinnon. You might even see Rojo getting some snaps this week late in the game, in my opinion. So maybe a Chad Henne appearance. He might throw a touchdown. That would be hilarious. We'll see. But no, I'm going to say 42-10 Chiefs. It should be an easy game. I'd like to see this defense get back on track and shut up the haters and all that good stuff, and just have a nice, relaxing Chiefs game for once, and us not have to sit there and be completely pissed off.
That's not going to happen. It never happens.
So I think the Chiefs are going to blow out the Texans. But like Mike alluded to earlier, our guest yesterday, Kylie, did not think that. She thinks it's going to be a close game. So make sure you catch that video right here. You can see what we had to talk about. It was a good episode. We had some good conversation. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you guys after this game from the Texans so we can give you our instant reactions and hopefully be a lot better mood than it's been the last couple of weeks.
Hopefully. We'll see you guys.